Have you ever pictured a state, a whole country, as a living, breathing creature? Well, Thomas Hobbes did. In his incredible work, Leviathan, he doesn't just talk about government. He describes the entire commonwealth as a giant artificial man. So today, we're going to do exactly what he did. We're going to dissect this thing, piece by piece, using Hobbes's own blueprint.
And right from the get-go, Hobbes gives us the central metaphor. This isn't just about political theory. He's literally conducting an anatomy lesson. He wants us to see groups of people, what he calls systems, as the actual muscles that give this giant political body its structure and its strength.
So here's our game plan. We're going to start with the muscles, all the different systems of people. Then we'll trace the blood that feeds them, the economy. After that, we'll follow the nerves, the public officials who carry out the orders. And finally, we'll listen to its voice, the law itself.
All right, let's start with those muscles. For Hobbes, any group of people, and I mean any group, that comes together for a common interest or business, well, that forms a distinct part of the bigger body. These are the engines, the moving parts that actually get things done.
Hobbes's definition is super straightforward, right? A system is just people joined by a purpose. This could be tiny, like a family, or huge, like a corporation or even an entire province. Think of these as the basic organizational cells of the Leviathan.
Now this is where it gets really interesting. Look how Hobbes classifies every possible group. You've got regular systems, the official ones with a representative, and irregular ones, which are more like spontaneous gatherings. And then he splits those into political bodies created by the state and private ones created by the people. So province is political, but a family is private. But notice the key thing here. Whether any of these groups are lawful or not depends entirely on one thing. Does the sovereign allow it, and does it threaten the peace? That's it.
And this slide right here is the golden rule. It doesn't matter how powerful a governor or a CEO might seem. Their authority is never their own. These muscles, so to speak, can only flex as much as the brain, the sovereign, allows them to. All of their power is borrowed. It's limited, always.
So, if these systems are the muscles, what nourishes them? What keeps this whole body going? For Hobbes, that's the economy. It's the nutrition, the blood that has to circulate through the entire body to keep it alive and kicking.
Hobbes breaks the economy down into this really logical, four-step biological process. First, you need plenty, the raw materials from the earth. Then, the sovereign steps in to distribute it by creating the whole concept of private property. Next, you have concoction, which is basically turning all that stuff into portable money. And finally, conveyance, circulating that money to every last part of the body, just like blood flowing through arteries.
You know, this idea of property is totally radical. Hobbes is saying that without a sovereign ruler, there is no such thing as mine and yours. It's just a free-for-all, what you can grab and what you can hold. Property rights, he argues, don't come from nature. They are a deliberate invention of the state, an act of the sovereign designed purely to keep the peace.
And here it is, the metaphor in its most powerful form. Money isn't just a tool. It is the literal lifeblood of the state. It has to circulate everywhere to enable every single part of the body, from the top official to the smallest merchant, to do its job.
Okay, so we've got muscles and we've got blood. But how does the sovereign's will, the brain's decision, actually get to the rest of the body? Well, that happens through its nerves, the public ministers, and through its voice, the law.
I love this analogy. Hobbes sees public officials as the body's nervous system. They are the channels that transmit the sovereign's commands to all the limbs of the state, making sure its arms and legs and hands all move together exactly the way the head wants them to.
So, a public minister isn't just any government employee. What makes them special is that they are authorized to act as the Commonwealth itself in their specific job. They're not just representing themselves, they are a living extension of a sovereign's authority.
And just look at the scope of these nerves. It's everything. Governors, judges, tax collectors, military commanders, even teachers. Each one is like a specialized nerve ending, performing a critical task, governing, fighting, teaching, all in the name of that single sovereign power.
Now, before we get to the law, Hobbes makes this absolutely critical distinction. Counsel is just advice. You listen to it for your own benefit, and you can totally ignore it. But a command, well, that's different. You obey a command simply because of the will of the person who gave it. You don't have a choice.
And that leads us right here to his definition of civil law. Law is not a tradition, it's not a suggestion. It is a direct, crystal clear command from the sovereign. It is the official rulebook that tells every single person what is right and what is wrong.
And this is the mic drop moment of the whole theory. Since the sovereign is the only one who can make laws, the sovereign can't be bound by those same laws. The ruler stands outside and above the entire legal system, free to make or unmake any law they want. This is the absolute peak of sovereign power.
So we've taken the Leviathan apart piece by piece. Let's put it back together and take a good look at what we've actually built here. We've seen the muscles of its people, the blood of its economy, the nerves of its ministers, and the absolute commanding voice of its law. Every single part is engineered to serve the whole body, to crush internal conflict, and to create a unified, powerful state. It's a perfect machine, designed for one purpose: survival and peace through absolute power.
And that leaves us with one last big question. Hobbes's design is a masterpiece of ruthless logic. It's brilliant. But in creating this perfectly obedient body, where every single part must submit to the will of the brain, what space is left for things like conscience, for individual liberty? What happens to the heart of the person living inside this giant artificial man?